This was the most difficult t-shirt we've ever made. This is how we made our fruity collection. So this design we've been probably working on for over a year, if not more. We started out with the front design, which is where it says Cereal City, and then it has the Fruit Loops puff over the top. Once I found that font, I was just in love with it and knew I had to use it somehow. Technique-wise, it's really simple. It's just a text warp in Illustrator, and it's supposed to kind of mimic a 50s, 60s varsity tee, but not in a super obvious way. And then we knew we kind of wanted this overlay on top with Fruit Loops. The back was something I couldn't really put my place on for a very long time. I started out as just a simple illustration of a cereal bowl with Fruit Loops flying out of it. And I kind of sat with that for a while, and I liked it, but I knew it wasn't quite there. Played around with re-illustrating the same kind of concept in illustration in a couple different styles. Still couldn't really, I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. And then all of a sudden I just kind of had this vision of this like cyclone cereal bowl in my head, and how I could make a whole cereal bowl out of that, with the cyclone being like the top part of the bowl. Once I had that, I was super excited, but I knew it needed a bit more than that, so I started figuring out how I could integrate a spoon with a similar spiral concept in there. Then to finish out the set, a cereal box and a milk carton. And that was sweet. I loved that. And I still feel like, just compositionally wise, it needed one more thing. Again, this was something I tried a lot of different things. I tried doing some sketched out type, and I knew I kind of wanted this organic, not quite bubbly feel, but kind of spilled milk feel. And then I finally realized, if I wanted to have a spilled milk feel, what better the way than to actually spill milk? So that's pretty much, that's literally exactly what I did, is I took a straw and milk, and I suctioned it, and then drew it on the counter so it said Cereal City, and I took that, drew the outline, and I knew that was it. That's the back design. But again, this process was just me tinkering with it over and over again for a year, trying different things. I finally got the design down, and I knew it needed to be tie-dye of some sort, and immediately my first thought was to have some sort of pebbles kind of feel, almost like you took a shirt and pressed Fruity Pebbles onto it. It took a couple dye tests to really dial it in, but it was really a simple process. I kind of chose my dye colors and based them off of what Fruity Pebbles would be, so lime green, purple, peachy pink, yellow, red, and then a teal, like vibrant teal, and a blue. And really it was just about figuring out how much dye I wanted on these shirts, and at the end of the day, the first one I did was a little too much dye on it. We tied all the shirts in a spiral, and then just about adding one drop here and there, kind of like polka dots. And then when you unravel it, it turns out like this. I think a lot of the times tie-dye is like the super in-your-face, super saturated, all over rainbow tie-dye, and I really think there's way more to the world of tie-dye than that, and I just love the look of tie-dyes that are a bit more sporadic, that leaves a lot of white on the shirt. So once we had the test down, we dyed all the shirts, and it was a lot of work, but that went great. We pulled the shirts out, dried them, washed them, all that, and then we figured out how to print. Now, this is where it starts to become a bit of a nightmare. So in the past, when we've tried screen printing, it's always been a bit of a nightmare trying to get the emulsion right. We don't have the right equipment, especially exposure unit and equipment like that, to get a good emulsion out, and I just kept being so frustrated by it that I was ready to give up before I saw a hack on the internet to use Cricut cut vinyl as a stencil. And I thought, sweet, I have a couple extra screens and access to a Cricut, let's just try this out. And I remember trying it out, and it honestly worked great. And so a lot of the stuff we printed before this collection was printed that way. So that's kind of how we thought the future was moving forward. And then we started with these, and man, was it a nightmare. So we started printing the backs because it was easy. It was one color print, and it went pretty good for the most part. You know, we're still kind of dialing in our press setup, things like that. So once we got that dialed in, I was getting pretty good prints for about the first 4 or 5 shirts, but then it just started becoming a nightmare. I started to get bleeding on the back. The vinyl started to literally fall and peel off and lose its stickiness. I probably went through about 2 or 3 screens reapplying vinyl and redoing that before I said this is not going to work. So for this collection, we finally got burned emulsion screen, and once we did that, it was a bit off to the races, but it was still a struggle figuring out, you know, how to get shirts placed on the platen correctly. Just things like that, you know, you take for granted when you buy a t-shirt. That, man, screen printing is not easy. There's a lot that goes into screen printing, and I think at the end of the day, we're 85-90% happy. And again, that's just my person. I struggle to be 100% happy with anything, and I think at the end of the day, I'm super happy with how they all turned out. The puff print turned out great, and the print quality is probably good enough that when you buy one, you'd probably never notice. Again, I made it. I know what the process looks like, so I know every little intricate detail of what went wrong and how it could be better. And a couple wasted garments later, it's not the end of the world, and I'm still so happy that it even turned out at all, and I was able to get these out into your hands. Hopefully in the future, we've ironed out all the kinks and things will go smoother in the future, but that's just kind of having these creative hobbies, is figuring things out and troubleshooting and diagnosing issues and learning to be okay with that progression, learning from your mistakes, and moving on to the next one and hoping that one goes easier. That is behind the scenes of our fruity collection.